It's about time we started running the legendary gerbils of Generation 2, and we're beginning with Raikou. And just before we get into this challenge, I want to say thank you to everybody for all the support you've shown on the recent challenge runs. They've been an awful lot of fun to produce, and if you are enjoying the content, please do make sure to like this video, and if you really enjoy yourself here, please do think about subscribing. It really does help out more than you can imagine, because the more people who subscribe, the more the algorithm pushes the video, and that lets even more people know what we're doing together here on the channel. And now today's challenge is Raikou. It's the first of the 3 legendary beasts we're running together here on the channel. I am very excited to see how well each and every one of them does. We're going to start by taking a look at the stats of our Raikou, and as always we are level 5 and this time we have 25 HP. We're holding the berry with Bite and Leer. We've got 15 in attack, 13 in defense, 18 in special attack, 16 in special defense, and 18 in speed. So we're starting off with some very solid stats, and we'll see just how far those stats can take us in the early part of this challenge. Our first wild encounter this time was a level 2 Centret. Bite knocks it out in one shot, and we can make our way to the first rival battle. And now for this challenge, it was fairly easy to decide which Pokemon the rival should have. The grass type of course resists electric, so that means that the rival is going to be having the Chikorita line throughout the course of this challenge. 3 bites knocks it out, and after ascending the Sprout Tower we find ourselves in front of Falkner. He's the first gym leader, a flying type specialist who leads with Pidgey, and this one's going to be a very simple battle. It's just going to be 2 Thunder Shocks to finish Falkner off, and we obtain the Zephyr badge in 6 minutes and 18 seconds. Let's now move on to Bugsy, the bug type specialist who leads with Metapod. This is going to be another fairly simple battle. It's 2 shots on both of Bugsy's Cocoon Pokemon to take them out, and now Scyther is of course going to be weak to Thunder Shock. Thunder Shock isn't the strongest move in the world though, so it's another 2 shots to knock it out, and we are through Bugsy in a time of 11 minutes and 59 seconds. I reckon we can celebrate as we travel round the corner today. I can't see the rival giving us too many issues whatsoever here in Rival 2, so let's see how we get on. This time he's going to lead with Ghastly, and even though we have Bite on the learn sets, we might as well use Thunder Shock to skip that super effective text. We'll bite the Bayleaf, and thanks to a few low rolls it ends up being a 4 shot, and we do get poisoned in the process, but we're in absolutely no danger of being knocked out. That Zubat's weak to Thunder Shock, we knock it out in 1, and we can start moving our way towards Goldenrod City in a time of 12 minutes and 34 seconds. In Goldenrod City we face Whitney. She is our 3rd gym leader together. She's a normal type specialist who leads with Clefairy. We're going to headbutt the Clefairy, and thank goodness Poison Powder missed. That would be incredibly frustrating if it hit. And now Bite is going to give us the best chance to get through the Miltank. It might not do the highest damage, but there was a chance of flinching. Of course she didn't flinch in the end, but it didn't matter because we still knocked out the Miltank, and we earned the Plain Badge in 17 minutes and 9 seconds. Let's now travel to the Burnt Tower where we get ambushed by the rival for the 3rd time. This time he's going to lead with Haunter, and this time we're going to have to use Bite on the Ghost. It's 1 shot to knock it out, so we're not on a clock for the rest of the battle. We'll Mud Slap the Magnemite, and we're just about strong enough to take that down in 1. And here comes Bayleaf. Once again we get poisoned by the Bayleaf. It loves doing that in this particular challenge, but once again we knock it out fairly easily. We'll get through the Zubat, and we defeat the rival in 21 minutes and 9 seconds. We'll fall through the floor, and we end up in front of Morty. Morty is the dual Ghost and Poison spectacular gym leader of Ecruteak City, and he's going to lead with Ghastly. Now we've got Bite on the learn set. That's a super effective move against all of these Ghost Pokemon, so it shouldn't be too tricky. We're holding the Minceberry as a little bit of insurance, but it didn't need to kick in, and then 1 final bite will seal the fate of Morty as we knock out his Haunter, and that's the Fog Badge acquired in 23 minutes and 4 seconds. A quick sail across the open seas takes us to Cianwood City where Chuck is waiting for us. Chuck is a fighting type specialist who leads with Primeape. We headbutt the Primeape as Fury Swipes misses, and we're on to the Poliwrath. Now here is a slight issue with Raikou. That was a critical hit Thunder Shock, and it didn't knock out the Poliwrath in 1. We really are struggling for a good electric type move at the moment. We're running at a lower level than we normally would do because we're in the slow experience group, and Thunder Shock is only base 40 power. And even with stab and holding the magnet, I believe it's only going to be around about base 66 power, which is not good for this point in the challenge. But I suppose the good news is we do learn Spark in 4 and a bit levels. The Pryce battle was fairly simple. I did misclick with hidden power against the Dugong, but that made no difference to the outcome of this battle. We knock out the Dugong and we defeat Pryce in a time of 37 minutes and 7 seconds. Let's now take on Jasmine, the Steel type leader who leads with Magnemite. Now we are still relying on Mudslap for the Magnemite line, and that just is not going to do at this point. We are going to get paralysed from this second Magnemite because Mudslap isn't a one-shot, and even with a soft sand it wouldn't have been a one-shot against those Magnemites. The good thing is we've got ridiculously high special attack, and that will make taking care of this Steelix incredibly easy. And the ranges fell just perfectly so Jasmine didn't heal, and we get the mineral badge in 38 minutes and 24 seconds. Let's now take a trip into the Goldenrod Underground, where the rival so rudely interrupts us during our big rocket slog. He's going to lead with Golbat's Thundershock is enough to knock it out, and here's another pesky Magnemite. Once again we don't one-shot the Magnemite and we end up being paralysed in this battle, and then because our speed is quartered we don't outspeed the Haunter. That does mean we're now on a clock for the remainder of the rival battle, but it shouldn't be too much of an issue as long as we can get our hits off. We critical hit the Sneasel and we finally get rid of Thundershock in place of Spark. We'll swap to Hidden Power Ice for the Meganium, we knock it out in 1, and we defeat the rival for a 4th time in 44 minutes and 37 seconds. We beat up the rest of the Rockets, take a cycle through a very chilly ice path, and we end up in front of Clair. Clair's our final Cantonian gym leader, a Dragon-type specialist who leads with Dragonair. It's going to be Hidden Power Ice for all 3 of these Dragonair to knock them out in 1 shot, and we can turn our focus instead now to Kingdra. We're going to do Hidden Power on turn number 1 as she locks herself into Hyper Beam, and then we low roll with Spark on turn 2, and she ends up in a bit of a healing loop. 2 further Sparks does knock out the Kingdra though, and that's our final Cantonian gym badge, the Rising badge, in 51 minutes and 15 seconds. Right, let's start heading towards the Pokémon League, and just before we get to the door of the Indigo Plateau, we're going to be ambushed for the final time by the rival. This time he's going to lead with Sneasel Pleasel. Sparks a one-shot on the Sneasel, so he sends out Magneton. Mudslap this time kicks in and reduces the accuracy of Thunder Wave to make sure it misses, so we're not going to be paralysed for the rest of this battle. We knock out the Haunter in a single shot, so we're not on a clock via Curse. We two-shot the Kadabra, and the penultimate Pokémon is Meganium. Once again, we end up being statused by the rival. I think this is the first challenge run where every single time he could status us he has done, but the rest of the battle was fairly simple. It was 2 shots on Meganium, 1 shot on Golbat, and we defeat the rival and enter the Indigo Plateau at 54 minutes and 54 seconds. Let's heal up our Raikou whether we need it or not, and now we'll thank the HM friends. So it's a big thank you to Kenya, Abracida, and Paris. Get yourself some well-deserved rest, while Raikou prepares to take on the Pokémon League. Before we go in the league, of course, we're going to take a look at our stats, and this time we're going in at level 48 with 173 HP. We're holding the Scamulet coin with Spark, Mudslap, Bite, and Hidden Power Ice. We've got 119 in attack, 106 in defense, 151 in special attack, 137 in special defense, and 145 in speed. Those, of course, are the out of battle stats. We'll get a big buff in battle now, as we'll see against Will. He's our first league member, a psychic type specialist who leads with Xatu. We spark away the Xatu and grow to level 49. And then Raikou will have a little critical hit nibble on Jinx to knock her out in 1, and the third Pokemon is Executor. Hidden Power Ice is more than capable of knocking it out in 1. The fourth Pokemon is Slowbro. We knock that out with a single Spark, and will continue sparking against the Xatu. That was a very nice and simple will battle in 56 minutes and 3 seconds. Let's move on to Koga, the Poison type specialist who leads with Ariados. Spark isn't quite a one-shot on the Ariados, but the double team means nothing this time. We hit it on our second turn and we can turn our attention to Fortress. We paralyse the Fortress as he uses Spikes, so that's completely meaningless, and it goes down in 2. It's a 2 shots on the Venomoth with Spark and we end up being Toxicked, and that means we're on a timer for the rest of this battle. We'll use Spark against the Muck and it's looking like it's going to be a 3 shot unless we high roll, and that means we're taking a little bit of chip damage. But the good news is the final Pokemon is Crobat. That's not going to survive a single Spark and we defeat Koga in 56 minutes and 45 seconds. Let's now move on to what is actually a very tricky battle for Raikou. It's Bruno, the fighting type specialist, who leads with Hitmontop. And now, because we don't have Earthquake, we're going to take some damage from Dig at the start of this battle. Onyx is actually completely irrelevant because we can use Hidden Power Ice against it. We're not going to be able to one-shot the Hitmonlee though, and High Jump Kick takes a little bit more damage off us. We'll finish it off with a Hidden Power to conserve our sparks, and here comes Hitmonchan. This is going to be yet another 2-shot, and that means we take 2 turns of guaranteed damage through Muck Punch. And that means by the time we get to Machamp, we've only got 68 HP remaining, and we get knocked out by Cross Chop. After this challenge was recorded, I did a little bit of theory crafting with the lovely Snowy, and we came up with the idea of taking in the Gold Berry from the Ruins of Alph for any Pokemon that are particularly weak to Bruno's team, because while it may only heal 30 HP, that might be enough to survive some of the Cross Chops and make this battle more consistent. So next time we go up against Bruno and we're struggling, I'll give that a go and see just how much difference it makes. And this time the Bruno battle was an awful lot smoother. We grow to level 51 as we defeat the Hitmonchan. We're through him in 59 minutes and 17 seconds. Let's move on to Karen, who leads with Umbreon. Now the HP up strategy is not a guarantee. We get double sand attacked and I decide to take a reset. However, the HP up strategy does mean it's less likely for Karen to use Sand Attack. On our second attempt, she doesn't use Sand Attack, and that gives us a chance to see how bad the rest of her team's gonna be. We end up paralysed courtesy of Vileplume, but then for some reason the Gengar doesn't use Curse. Instead it uses Lick, and we're not going to complain at that because we're not on a timer for Karen's final 2 Pokemon. It's a 2-shot on Houndoom with Spark, and that takes us deep into the red, but we should be able to survive a single feint attack from Murkrow. We aren't fully paralysed, we knock it out, and we defeat Karen in 1 hour and 20 seconds. There's only one obstacle between us and the Hall of Fame now. It's time for Lance, the Liar with the Flyers, and he's going to lead with Gyarados. And in this instance, I think the Pokemon League is going to go out with a whimper instead of a bang. We super effective spark the Gyarados away, we'll swap to Hidden Power for the first Dragonite, we'll keep on Hidden Powering against the second Dragonite as well, and now he's going to send out the third one. 3 Hidden Powers dispose of 3 Dragonites, and we can then swap back to Spark for the Charizard and the Aerodactyl. This was a very, very simple Lance battle. It makes up for the Bruno battle earlier on in the league, and we defeat him in a time of 1 hour, 1 minute and 6 seconds. And that means our final Hall of Fame time is 1 hour, 1 minute and 22 seconds. It's definitely been a little bit up and down so far for Raikou, but this is only half of the story. We've still got another 8 gym badges plus the red fight left to come, so don't you dare go anywhere. Kanto is next. And we rejoin the action here in Vermilion City, where the first thing we do in Kanto is the last thing we do in Johto. We're going to get another rare candy, this time from the chairman of the Pokemon Fan Club. And with that safely tucked away in our bag for another challenge, I am more than pleased to say that Raikou is capable of doing our standard Cantonian routing. So we'll start with Lieutenant Surge, we'll take on Erica in Celadon City, we'll cycle down to take on Janine, we'll go back to Saffron to take on Sabrina, then it will be Misty, Brock, Blaine and Blue. And of course, for those of you lovely people who wish to skip ahead to the Blue fight, it's going to be starting at 15 minutes and 45 seconds. But if you are staying with me for the next little bit, let's sit back, relax and have our standard Cantonian chat. And now in this one, there are a couple of bits I want to cover. The first one's a continuation of what we were talking about in the Flamigo backport. I've been doing a little bit of reflecting in between recording voiceovers, and I really don't think I've ever been this inspired to create challenge run content together here on the channel. Since we returned to challenge running in July, it has been an awful lot of fun. And even with some of the Pokemon that were particularly difficult to play, such as Skarmory and Electrode, I still had a great time producing the videos, and I think that's been reflected in the voiceovers since we came back as well. And as a little experiment with myself, I've watched back a few of the older videos, and I've been listening very carefully to the voiceovers to try and figure out how I was feeling about challenge running in each particular video. And then when we look at the videos we've done since July this year, compared to especially the ones we did in February, you really can tell there's been a big shift in my attitude and my mindset towards challenge running. Instead of it feeling like a chore and having loads of other things weighing on my mind, I'm really able to throw myself into each challenge run and just produce the best possible video that I can make. And that brings us nicely on to the second thing I want to talk about, which is a little bit meta because it's the Cantonian chat. Now that's something we've only recently started doing, and genuinely I think it's one of the best things we've ever added to the videos. It's not for everybody, and that's why I always give the timestamp to skip ahead, But for me, I think it's a really good way to sit down with all you lovely people, sometimes get your feedback on some questions I have. There are some times where I really enjoy giving a little behind the scenes peek of how things are done here on the channel. And then there are other times where I really just want to have a little chat with all you lovely people and discuss something related to challenge running that has been on my mind. And there is also a stealthy other reason why I've started doing these little Cantonian chats. There's a skill I picked up during my casino work called talking to time, and that means you have a set time frame where you need to cover an entire topic. Sometimes it could be as short as 30 seconds, other times it could be as long as about 3.5 minutes. But I had to make sure that I timed what I was saying to perfection, and practicing that skill is incredibly important when you're making unscripted videos like these ones. Because by doing these chats, I'm always speaking to time in preparation for the blue fight, and then I can transfer those skills to other parts of the video to make sure I'm commentating and narrating in the most effective way possible, so that way we're not missing out on anything at all. And I don't mean to sound big-headed, but yet again this Kanto chat has been timed to perfection. So let's now rejoin the action at blue. He's our final Cantonian gym leader and mixed-type specialist who leads with Pidgeot. Thunderbolt's a nice and simple one-shot to get us started off against the Pidgeot, so he sends out Rhydon. We've got Hidden Power Ice, we've got huge special attacks, so it goes down in one. The third Pokémon is Alakazam. We're going to use Thunderbolt because that's going to be the most consistent way to get rid of it in one hit. We'll swap back to Hidden Power Ice for the Executor. He doesn't Leech Seed this time, instead choosing to go for Solar Beam. We're not going to complain about that because that means the rest of the battle will go an awful lot quicker. We take Arcanine deep into the red and he gets himself caught in a little bit of a healing loop. 2 further Thunderbolts knocks it out and we can have a very simple finish against the Gyarados. It's 4 times weak to Thunderbolts, we finish it off in 1 and we have defeated Blue in a time of 1 hour 15 minutes and 59 seconds. And with that, there's only one more battle left. So we'll take a little cycle through Silver Cave and we will engage Red in battle. He's our final trainer of the challenge and he leads with Pikachu. We use Return against Pikachu, but it's nowhere near a one-shot. This isn't off to a good start. We do eventually two-shot the Pikachu and we'll get to see how bad the Espeon is. We can take Espeon deep into the yellow with one crunch and we can finish it off with a second one, but we have taken a fair amount of damage from Psychic. Out comes the Snorlax and this really is going to be the pesky Pokemon for the entire challenge. We don't have anything great for it, especially after he uses Amnesia. Body Slam's going to keep whittling away at us and it knocks us out. Let's use our first 3 rare candies. So we are now up to level 64. We're going to use Return on turn 1 against Pikachu. It's still nowhere close to a one-shot, but we are going to try and focus on our special attacks for the rest of this battle. That means that Charm is irrelevant, and after we've healing looped the Pikachu away, we're back onto the Espeon. We still take Espeon deep into the yellow with a single crunch and we can knock it out in 2, but once again we've taken a lot of damage from Psychic. I was really hoping for a Reflect there. We paralyse the Snorlax, which is great, but then Snorlax body slams us and paralyzes us straight back. Another 3 rare candies go into the Raikou and we're now up to level 67. We're going to start using Thunderbolt against the Pikachu because that will avoid the healing loop and it will save a little bit of time. We're still going to crunch the Espeon and once again it goes for Psychic. We are taking less and less damage from Psychic every time it uses it, but it is still frustrating. Once again the Snorlax goes for Amnesia, once again it body slams us, but this time instead of paralysing us, he just gets a critical hit. We really are getting very unlucky against that Snorlax. We're going to use our final 4 rare candies and decline the option to learn Thunder, because Thunder just is not going to cut the mustard. Rain Dance takes ages to set up and it really is not worth it. We're going to use Return against Pikachu because that's now a one-shot. And even now, Espeon is still not going for Reflect. That means we take the guaranteed damage from Psychic, and we are back onto this pesky Snorlax. And time again, this Snorlax keeps on paralysing us. Desperate times call for desperate measures. We are getting the Zap Cannon out. So we're going to say goodbye to Crunch, because it's not a one-shot on the Espeon and it's just taking up a slot in the Learn set. We'll return away the Pikachu, and at long last this Espeon uses Reflect. We are going into the Snorlax at full health for the first time. Zap Cannon connects, it paralyzes the Snorlax, and that means we can get to returning it. We just have to hope that Snorlax will be fully paralysed for one turn, and it's not happening. We get the Snorlax into the red and he uses rest. We're going to take another reset. There's no point in persevering when it uses rest. This time I misclick and use Thunderbolt against the Pikachu, and that means he ends up in a healing loop. We're going to finish it off with Return on turn number 2 though, and the leftovers mean we've regained most of the health we lost. This time Espeon goes back to Psychic, so we are going to be damaged as we enter into battle against this pesky Snorlax, and we really just need a break against this thing. Zap Cannon misses on turn 1, it does paralyse on turn number 2, and that means we're going to start returning away. We just need one bit of good luck against this Snorlax, and it finally happens on reset number 11. We are through it and we get to see the Venusaur. We're going to go to Hidden Power Ice and it's going to be a 2-shot. Venusaur takes in Sunlight and that was the perfect play there. We've got 2 Pokemon left to go. They're both going to be weak to our electric moves. So we one-shot the Charizard, out comes the Blastoise. We use Thunderbolts once again. It's a one-hit wonder against the Blastoise and we have defeated Red in a time of 1 hour, 23 minutes and 11 seconds. Where Raikou excelled, it really excelled, but there were places where it struggled, but it is a very valiant 12th place on the leaderboard, 4 seconds behind Poliwrath and just about a minute ahead of Kangaskhan. That pushes Alakazam down into the page 2 drop zone and we now have Golem leading up page 3. At the other end, Piloswine had better watch out because it's in 90th place in the page 3 drop zone and Electrode makes its way onto page 4. We now have a full party of 6 on page 4, starting with Electrode, finishing with Shuckle, and there's no change to the top. It's Dodrio in first, Ho-Oh in second, Pidgeot in third, and Porygon 2 had better watch out because it's next to go down in the page 1 drop zone. But with that, we are done. So I really hope you've enjoyed this challenge. If you have, make sure to leave a like. If you want to see more just like this, then click the subscribe button. Any feedback at all, leave it in the comments down below. And until next time when Electabuzz reaches the end of the line, I'll say thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all very, very soon.